Hello, lovely, beautiful, amazing, incredible souls. So, with today's lesson, we are still on review. And from the communications that I've had with some people, review time seems to be a little bit more difficult or daunting. I even know for myself that it has uprooted a lot of hidden, unconscious thoughts that I was still holding on to and believing to be true. So I must say that I'm grateful for this eruption of illusion in my mind so I can see it for what it is and call upon God for correction. And so I guess I wanted to throw that out there for all of us to be reminded that if we are having a difficult time and feeling resistance in any way, that it's just ego trying to keep us listening to it, trying to hold on to its own separate will, and it is worthy of recognizing, but then also choosing otherwise. So I'm choosing otherwise. And when I'm inspired to extend a video as to my current experiences, I will do so, and I will let it flow from the Holy Spirit. But before that takes place, we are going to read lesson 86 and see what else can kind of come forward within our own mind to be shown to us and then corrected. So today is lesson 86. We are going to be dealing with the two main thoughts of the day. For the first half of the day is lesson 71, only God's plan for salvation will work. And the second half of the day, lesson 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. So we're going to tackle the first thought first. We're going to sit with it for 15 minutes in total. 3 to 4 minutes of it, we are going to be reading the paragraph and the thought. And then for the remainder of the 15 minutes, sit in silence and listen to the Holy Spirit for the answer to our prayer. So 71, only God's plan for salvation will work. It is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. I have seen it in many people and in many things, but when I reached for it, it was not there. I was mistaken about where it is. I was mistaken about what it is. I will undertake no more idle seeking. Only God's plan for salvation will work. And I will rejoice because His plan can never fail. Whew. And so Jesus says, these are some suggested forms for applying this idea specifically. So if we find throughout the day that we're seeking salvation in something outside of ourselves, that we are seeking salvation anywhere other than where it is, which is right here, then we realize that we are calling upon our own will and not God's. And that's when we can recognize our need for these thoughts of the day to be applied to our misperceptions in our mind. So those 3 thoughts for specific application are, God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. The second one, this is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. This is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. The third one, let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. So whatever the situation is, let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. You have to realize this is what we really want. And so, for the second half of the day, we are going to be applying the second thought, which is holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. Yet only His plan will work. By holding grievances, I am therefore excluding my only hope of salvation from my awareness. I would no longer defeat my own best interests in this insane way. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. Remember, my function is the one God gave me, and my happiness and function are one. And therefore, when we accept our function as forgiveness of our misperceptions, forgiveness of our grievances, is when we accept ourselves as the light of the world, and we accept God's plan for salvation in place of our own. And this is where happiness is, and God's plan for salvation, not our own. So today, here's some specific applications for this idea, and these forms might be helpful. So the 3 thoughts are, I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look on this. I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look on this. Always a choice between the two. If I see grounds for grievances in this, I will not see the grounds for my salvation. Whoa. If I see grounds for grievances in this, I do not see grounds for my salvation. Period. If I see a grievance, I do not see salvation. And a grievance is feeling any form of upset, thinking that the past could have been different than it was, thinking you should have said or done something differently, thinking somebody else should have said or done something differently. All this is pain. It needs to be gone. And finally, this calls for salvation, not attack. This calls for salvation, not attack. And you better believe that the mind wants to attack the one that it judges. So if it judges you, yourself, or if it judges anybody else at all, then ego thinks it's justified in this. But we're realizing that when I feel attack thoughts, when I feel that I want to attack another person, if I feel that I want to attack myself, even if it's just judgment, frustration, anger, annoyance, all of this stuff is the effect of the grievance in our mind that we're not seeing truly. So I'm willing today to hand over every last bit of grievance that I have become aware of in my mind in the last couple days and hand it over to God to accept His salvation instead of my own. I realize that these grievances are hiding the light of the world in me, even if it's this much. Even if it's this much, I'm going to be vigilant for God's will. I want not even the smallest little thread of meanness or judgment left in my mind. And so because of that, I extend this to all of you, for all of us to call upon correction together, so we may receive God's plan for salvation and not our own, so we may receive happiness instead of these attack thoughts of pain. So, with that being said, I love you all. God bless you all. Thank you.